session lined up for you today with our friends at Capsum, and they're going to show us how to do something really unique, how to rapidly build custom inbox simulations that are code-free, that you don't have to learn how to code to create. You're going to find out how these can benefit you, why you should do that, and so forth in just a few moments from Wyatt and Luke and Matt. We'll turn things over to them shortly. I do want to point out some webinars we have coming up. You'll see here on April 12th, so next week, and the 13th, we have some great webinars lined up. We have about 70 webinars in the calendar, so you're probably well advised, especially those of you who are new here, to just go to trainingmagnetwork.com/calendar, and you'll be able to see all the webinars we have lined up right now. And every day I am adding more webinars there for all of you, so check back often or open all of your email. Now, I promised I would show you how to find the recording of this webinar and all of our other webinars as well. So you go to trainingmagnetwork.com, same place you logged in today, and on the right-hand side of the page, you will see this button, Recorded Webinar Archive. Click that, and the newest recording is always posted at the very top of that page. So you'll wait about 3 hours today, a little later on today, and then you'll find this recording posted right there. Take a little time to use the search function, search something like, I don't know, like simulations or micro-learning, for example, and you'll find in our 1,500 recordings there that there'll be a number on almost any topic you can think of. Don't forget to search the free white papers and ebooks, and take a look again at the calendar of all the free webinars that are coming up at Training Mag Network. We work awfully hard to bring these to you for free, and we don't want you to miss out on anything. That's why we send you all that lovely email. Do want to let you know that the voting is now open for the Training Mag Network Choice Awards. This is where you make your voice heard for who you think should be nominated and receive awards in the categories you see listed here. You can just go to Training Mag Network and look at the navigation bar, and you'll find the link for the Choice Awards, or you can just click this link that I just put in the chat. So we welcome your vote. Okay, I've already talked about the Training Live and Online program, but the news is here that we have all these great classes. We have about 20 of them each quarter. This is a smattering of them, but now you can earn an e-badge that has been approved by ATD for continuing education credits, which is something we had not offered until this week. So join that. Join us for some of those and get your e-badge. Also, we want to thank Capsum for sponsoring this webinar and showing us how to create these inbox simulations that we don't need to learn how to code for. You can see why 1,500 plus innovative universities and companies from over 50 countries use Capsum to drive meaningful business learning by going to capsum.com, and of course by staying here in this webinar. So thank you, Capsum, for making all this possible. Let's go ahead and get started now. I want to welcome Wyatt, who's the Manager of Experience Design at Capsum, and Luke, who's the Senior Product Manager at Capsum. And we also have Matt here, and Matt's going to join us as well. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us for this session. Welcome to Training Mag Network.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, for teeing us up here, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We're really excited to walk through building inbox simulations, and as we move along, I think you're going to see why. We'll be walking the group through how to rapidly build these inbox simulations for your audience. And before we do that, we'll introduce our colleagues here. My name is Luke Courtright, so I'm the Senior Product Manager at Capsum. We're also joined here by my colleague Wyatt Dans, our Manager of Experience Design. And then we're also joined by Matt Shell, who's our Learning Strategist. So let's get a quick rundown of what we're going to rapidly go through today. First, we're going to get a quick refresher on inbox simulations, what they are, how they can be used. Then we'll take a look at some practical use cases for inbox simulations, how we've seen them utilized. We're also going to look at some real-world inspiration and how to get your creative juices flowing. And then the rapid part, here's where it's going to get fun. We're going to try to build an inbox simulation in under 15 minutes. But what you'll really want to stick around for, today we're kicking off an authoring competition, our micro-learning challenge. There might be some prizes in it for you, so you want to be sure to stick around for that. And we'll have a few minutes for questions at the end. But looking at that agenda, it is going to be a packed hour, so I'll go ahead and throw it over to Matt for a quick rundown on inbox simulations.
Can do, Luke. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for your time today. And just as Luke described, let's take a moment to actually look at what exactly an inbox simulation is. So basically, an inbox simulation is a day-on-the-job experience that bridges the knowing-doing gap and really assesses learners' skills in a very immersive and familiar environment. And this can be done in as little as just 5 to 10 minutes time. Now, the way this is done is via a simulated email inbox like the one you see on screen, where learners take the role of an employee or a manager at a fictional company, and we want to see exactly how they would respond to different day-to-day tasks, issues, and perhaps even some crises as well. Now, the way they'll do this is by interacting with different email and instant message stimuli that are all based on real-world situations, but are delivered via fictional internal and external stakeholders. So it could be an intern to the CEO, or key clients or vendors, or even individual contributors. But just like the real world, there's going to be multiple effective ways to handle each given situation. But what it really comes down to is the subtle differences in how we communicate and how those differences can lead to some very different outcomes as well. And the reason for that is that based on your decisions in an inbox simulation, the learners are going to be able to see the consequences of their actions in real time through our branching logic. So they could follow a more positive path to resolution, or could maybe something negative as well. And to best show an example of that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Wyatt, who will share with you our first capsum moment of today. Wyatt?
Thanks, Matt. Thrilled to be here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Wanted to start by familiarizing the audience with what an inbox simulation is. And the best way to do that is to play one. So we have prepared a couple examples of the inbox moments, and we'll show those throughout the presentation, and we'll ask you to play along with us in these moments. So the first is an example that we pulled from a sales training inbox. And here's a glimpse of the interface as Matt was talking. The participants receive email and instant message interactions and have to make choices based on the situation and role that they're taking on. In this case, we're asking you to take on the role of sales development manager at a pen company. This example evaluates decision-making, sales acumen, and communication skills. So I'll read this to you and ask you how you would respond to this situation. This is an email from Terry Hankfield, the Vice President of Operations. Subject line, thanks for your updates. Terry says, thanks as always for your updates in the leadership meeting. Great to learn about the new opportunities coming in. Keep up the good work. I took a look through the sales pipeline report and noticed that Trevor's deals aren't moving through the pipeline as quickly as other members of the sales team. What are your next steps there, Terry? Terry says, P.S. I saw a good one on the wife's Pinterest the other day. See attached. So let's check the attachment. And Terry has attached a meme. In this case, this attachment doesn't give us much detail or context that's going to help with our decision making, but it is a nice example of some of the world building and authenticity that Inbox can achieve. It speaks to the personality of Terry and the relationship that we have with him. But without that helping us, I want to walk through these response options and ask you, what would you do in this situation? So I believe that we're going to put a poll up, and I'd love you to choose A, B, or C. If you choose A, you're replying, I sent him an email letting him know the deals need to move forward this month. Light a little fire under his chair. B, I'm going to look under the hood in the CRM to review his opportunity notes and activity levels, then set a meeting to discuss options for moving forward. Or C, I will contact Trevor about discussing pipeline flow in our next one-on-one meeting. So how would you reply to Terry in this situation? A, B, or C? And I can see some votes are coming through. I'll give a few seconds to let the consensus build, although it seems like we have an early favorite here. All right. I think it's pretty clear that as a group, we're going to go with B. Thank you for participating in that poll. Let's look at the results. In this case, congratulations to those who picked B. That is the most effective response to this situation. That answer communicates your decision to investigate further, as well as indicates how you'll address and communicate your discoveries with Trevor. An ineffective response in this situation would be A, because you're making the decision to skip out on a coaching opportunity with your direct report, and your communication is poor. Option C is an interesting option because it's a somewhat effective response. You're showing managerial competency in setting up a coaching moment with Trevor, but it's not as effective as taking on a proactive dive into the investigation of what's going on prior to that conversation. So you might be wondering where the scoring comes from in this example. We built this with the help of our director of sales at Capsum, and that's a helpful reminder that internal subject matter experts can add a lot of validity to the training that you build. I love this example. It demonstrates something that Inbox is really good at, which is nuanced scoring. So there's that most effective response and a somewhat effective response. And I think that's really helpful because in the real world, our actions are not judged on right or wrong. There's levels of correctness and different levels of outcomes that can come out of our actions. Inbox is really effective at building that kind of assessment. Another thing I want to touch on, as Matt mentioned, based on the decision that you choose here, there will be branching, and the next interaction you'll have will be dependent on what you chose. So if you chose A, you're going to get a different response from Terry than if you chose B or C. So in the case if you chose A, the ineffective answer, Terry would respond and say, I don't know if that's the right approach. Consider an alternate response. So that's a quick refresher on what Inbox is and how participants interact with the tool. I'm going to pass it back to Matt to share more on how these day-on-the-job simulations can benefit the user.
Absolutely. And thank you, Wyatt, for that. And yes, as now that we've seen an example of what Capsum Inbox is and a little bit of how it works, I just want to provide a brief summary on why Inbox simulations are so impactful when it comes to training. And for an in-depth look at this, as Gary mentioned, we're going to be sharing our February 17th Training Magazine webinar, where we focus on finding and fixing skill gaps with these Inbox simulations. And additionally, in that webinar, it'll describe how Inbox simulations were inspired by in-basket exercises that have long been used for candidate screenings and for identifying emerging leaders for well over half a century. Because basically what we've done here is combined in-basket exercises' long history of success in assessment centers with a much more self-directed, time-sensitive, and of course, simulation-based approach. And as I'm sure many of you know, experiential learning tools, which include simulations, are incredibly impactful because they task the learner with, well, learning by doing. And there's a plethora of research out there that supports the efficacy of experiential learning. But now I'd like to go ahead and shift gears to highlight some of the key benefits of Inbox simulations. And that starts off with that they are authentic as they mirror the real world environment that learners take part in every day. And this is done in a very, immersive and relatable way. And then second is that they are accurate assessments that allow you to evaluate skills directly relevant to the learner's role. And this is primarily due to the customization capabilities that we have that we'll demonstrate through the majority of today's session. And of course, it's a very engaging email format, which we're all familiar with because we use it virtually every day. And then third is that they are very accurate assessments and that you're able to evaluate skills basically through the practical application of knowledge. It's very objective, and therefore it eliminates a variety of different biases. And much like athletes running a scrimmage ahead of the big game, it's a great way to practice in a safe, contained atmosphere. And then finally, it's that they are predictively valid, as we've actually conducted research on these Inbox simulations that find that a learner's performance in an Inbox sim has a strong correlation with on-the-job performance. And in fact, one of the handouts that you can download here is our Capsum Inbox technical synopsis that'll not just walk you through the methodology of these Inbox simulations, but also the very study I just referenced. And then finally, in terms of outcomes, Inbox simulations can really assist you with increasing learning transfer at your organization at scale with a very self-directed and engaging experience. And at the same time, we're going to be able to provide you with empirical data that'll help you drive key business decisions within your company. And to kind of just show you how you can implement it within your organization, I have 3 quick examples of how you might be able to incorporate these. With really the first one being that we at Capsum have a catalog of ready-to-use experiences that assess key skills and competencies related to topics like general management or supervisory competencies in our people management version, or even ethical decision-making, just to name a few. And of course, all of these ready-to-use solutions are designed with the science of learning in mind. They can be immediately implemented in your organization, and you're able to be provided with comparable data. That way you can see how your learners pair up alongside a global audience. And then secondly, we have our Custom by Capsum option, where we work directly with companies out there to create an Inbox simulation that's directly unique to them and measures the specific skills or competencies that matter most to them. And of course, we use the same IO-backed approach and methodology that we use in our ready-to-use versions to create these custom simulations. And we've actually been able to create these in as little as a month to a month and a half's time with very minimal touch points with your team. And then finally, of course, we have the build your own option. That'll be the focus of today's session, where you can use our no-code authoring platform to create your very own inbox simulations. So whether you're looking to convert existing training materials to, modify for the digital transformation we're going through and be able to make them more accessible, or you're a consultant or an instructional designer out there that wants to monetize some of your creations, basically our mantra here at Capsum is if you can write an email, then you can write an inbox simulation. And in order to demonstrate that, I'd like to share just a few success stories on how our clients have implemented inbox simulations at their companies. And the first example I'd like to focus on is one related to skill development. And it has to do with our work with Rapunzel Investments, a Chicago-based financial technology application firm that looks to develop healthy investing habits in their users via simulated stock purchases. Now, of course, simulation, this is a match made in heaven. And really the challenge that Rapunzel came to us with was that they wanted to see how they could more effectively apply knowledge and teach soft skill development to their user base for finance-related roles. And previously what they had been doing is using web-based assessments, videos, and workshops, but they wanted something a bit more engaging. So what we did was we worked with Rapunzel to create a variety of 15-minute immersive financial acumen scenarios via the Capsum Inbox platform. That way their users could see exactly what a role in finance would look like while building their knowledge and helping them more effectively communicate across companies. So that's just our first example with skill development. Our next example, and very much a unique one we've seen with inbox simulations, is recruiting and hiring. And this has to do with our work with Reach HR Group, a Peruvian-based HR firm that really focuses on talent sourcing. So being able to find key candidates for some of the largest companies in South America. And really the challenge that Reach came to us with is that they needed a more intuitive and effective way to screen applicants. And the thing was that they were very familiar with a variety of other instructional design and authoring tools out there, but they all required significant design work, a high level of admin involvement, and they weren't even getting the skills data that they were looking for. So what Reach was able to do is that they've since created over a dozen 5 to 10 minute role previews via Capsum Inbox, where essentially before an individual even applies for a role, they can see exactly what a day in the life of that role would look like. So it's beneficial to them. And then on the recruiter side, they're able to put the applicants in scenarios where they can see exactly how they may perform to help inform their recruiting process as a component, of course, not the determining factor. And what's phenomenal about this is that because of the intuitive and rapid building process that our authoring platform has given Reach, they've been able to cut their hiring process time by down to 50 to 70%, depending on the role. And we're talking everything from first level management all the way to executive level positions. And then for our final example that I'd like to share today is one around certification, where we've been working with S&P Global Market Intelligence to basically make a digitalized certification course for their Capital IQ platform. And basically what the Capital IQ platform is a data analytics and financial intelligence tool. So S&P reached out to us and they wanted to provide that certification in a much more practical and engaging way. And they've been using standard click-through trainings with knowledge check items, basically quizzes and exams. Well, what we were able to do was take that existing content and modify it into an immersive email narrative, where we've now created an entirely self-directed certification program via inbox simulations, where what happens is that individuals will take the role of a junior analyst. They'll actively pull data from the Capital IQ system via S&P and then apply that data in real world situations via Capsum Inbox. And as a result of this, we've been able to vastly increase the rate of certifications for S&P and provide them the practical, engaging experience that they were looking for. And these are just 3 quick examples of how we've seen this platform utilized. There's a variety more out there that I'm sure we'll get into. But at this point, I'd like to hand it back to Luke, who will show us how we've actually used this right internally here at Capsum. And I'll also take a moment to respond to some of the some of the messages in the chat as well. So Luke, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's always interesting to see companies kind of live their own values, and we at Capsum have used inbox simulations in our place of work too. I think everybody can relate to going through some sort of compliance training. Never really the most engaging experience, but we all kind of got to do it. And at Capsim, we had launched an initiative to improve data privacy at our company and trying to meet the highest standards that we could with that. So I want to take a second to kind of go through that process that we went through in developing an inbox simulation. Before I do that, I just recommend take a second, take a step back and say, ask yourself, do I face similar challenges to this at my organization? I'd be willing to bet that you do. The project itself in nature was pretty straightforward, and we did break that into 3 different phases. First, we had our project team assemble, try to build some of the competence, that information. Then we started to implement and update policies and procedures, but at the back end is really where Capsim Inbox fits in for us, the training and communication piece, which we knew we had to facilitate either way, and the experience, the immersiveness of an inbox simulation really reinforced why we love this product. The process itself, pretty direct as well. We had created a lot of content in our workflow, Confluence pages, Word documents, things that we knew we had to share throughout the company anyway. And we could actually present that directly in an inbox simulation, simulating that real world environment. And we have a few examples of that we can show. One of the great things, you'll see this email kind of in the screenshot here is coming from me. And you can use an inbox simulation to reinforce the stakeholders in this process, use them as characters in the exercise. So in this case, I was a little bit of a pushing through some key definitions that we wanted to reinforce. But it's a great way to frame, who is the stakeholder you would go to with a specific question, as an example. We were also able to implement some of the resources that we built out. You heard me talk about Confluence pages, Word docs, PowerPoints, PDFs. I saw someone in the chat asking about videos before. This is a great way to kind of bring in those outside resources and present them to our users to make sure, they have everything they need to be successful. And we could use that in an email attachment as an example. And then the really fun thing, you can repurpose existing emails that you've seen and drop them right into a simulation. So in our case, we kind of source some content through our customer support inbox. We repurposed some common questions we saw. There are some phishing emails that came through. We were able to track clicks on those links to make sure people weren't doing what we didn't want them to do in that case. And there are situations where you can even push real-time feedback to your users. So if they choose the wrong choice, potentially, you can give a little bit of corrective behavior and say, hey, that's not exactly how we want you to respond in this situation. So a few examples there. The bigger picture benefits, though, are on the data side. Since this fits into a recurring training that we're going to be doing on a yearly basis, we were able to look and review how our employees were responding to the messages to identify any potential gaps there might be. And with that, seeing if there were concepts that we needed to reframe and do a better job framing to our colleagues, or it could just be behavior we need to reinforce a little bit more. Maybe these are experiences they haven't really gone through quite just yet. So we're able to build on and improve that experience over time. So to recap, at Capsim, you saw us at the inception of that project, some of the process we implemented, using a lot of existing content and real world interactions to create this authentic, is the key word here, experience. This data that says our people know how to operate and they can communicate that, we can communicate that to both stakeholders, internal and externally. It's kind of the bow at the end of our project here. So that's how we did things at Capsim. This is just one example. And you saw a few examples from other companies as well, but I think this might be a good opportunity for a little more audience participation.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Before we get to that, I can speak as a participant, somebody who went through that data privacy training. I wasn't immersed in the team originally who was getting the implementation and requirements and updates, and it was a really valuable learning experience. We like to talk about it sort of as a basketball scrimmage. So I was able to learn the fundamentals of that data privacy stuff from the teammates that I was going to be implementing it with, and then put it into practice in that low stakes environment. I thought it was a particularly effective way to distribute and reinforce some of those concepts. So thanks for that, Luke. And that leads into our next section really well, which is all about how you can gain inspiration from real-world interactions and put them directly into inbox simulations. Material and content for engaging training is abundantly available for all of us, and I want to show you how. But to start this section, as Luke alluded to, let's get into another inbox moment play along. So once again, I'm going to ask for your participation on this one. And this example is an email from Madeline LaCroix, and we're asking you to take on the role of a customer support representative, and you're being evaluated on issue resolution. Context here, there's a new cookie policy that's been implemented across the company's tool, the company's platform. So Madeline reaches out, subject line, reply, cookie issue. She says, following up on this, after your suggestion, I moved my Chrome cookie settings from block third party in incognito to allow all, and I still have the exact same error message. You can see that this is an email thread, and the original message that Madeline sent was, I'm trying to view one of our reports. When I go to click anything about scores or export data as an Excel file, I get the message attached. When I log in again from the link provided, it just happens again. I'm on a Chrome browser, which I've been using for years to get reports. I restarted my computer this morning in case that would help. It did not. Help, Madeline. So let's take a look at what Madeline has attached to this email, screenshot of what she's experiencing on her end, and there's the link to log in that she referenced. So with that context in mind, I want to ask the audience again, what would you do as a customer support representative? If Madeline emailed you, would you A, ask a colleague for a second set of eyes, B, recommend that she clears cookies and cache and share an attachment of how she can achieve that, or C, offer to hop on a call with Madeline? So I think we'll have a poll up here in a second, and I want to know what you guys would do. We'll take the consensus as the decision that the group makes here. So yeah, it looks like we've got an early leader. I'll give a few seconds to make sure the late votes come in. Okay, as those trickle in, I don't think we're going to overcome the 80%, 83% response. That C, we're going to offer to hop on a call with Madeline. I think this is the most effective choice. Luke, can you explain some of the theory there?
Yeah, so we've outlined kind of the positive, negative, and neutral response options here, and people did kind of go with what we deemed to be the positive experience here of offering to hop on a call with Madeline. And this is a great example of how we would handle things at Capsim, and apparently that's shared by 80% of the people in attendance today. We do call the members of our support team client relationship consultants. So we're always trying not just to resolve issues, but to improve the rapport with our clients. And our feeling is that not only product knowledge goes a long way, but also that friendly voice is a big help to building those relationships. So we recognize that all teams might not operate in that way. You might have other third-party tools, you might have documentation you'd refer to, but this is just another example where you can have Caps Inbox to fit your specific approach just by tweaking a few minor things.
Yeah, I think it's important to note here that the scoring on this one is weighted to a Capsim scale, and other companies might have a different evaluation of how they'd want to handle a situation like this, but this is tailored to our company goals and workflow. The reason being is that it's an example inspired by a real interaction that our support team had with a client. A client was having an issue related to an update to our website's cookie policy. Ultimately, the cause was just a simple settings mix-up, but the support response became a training moment. And there's a few details I want to point out in the screenshot I've provided here that we used directly in the inbox moment. One, frustration is building. So this is the real interaction on the right here. And you can see over there that all caps, still not able to see this. You can see from the communication style that frustration is building. Two, the thread is getting really long. Those lines on the left side there, there's a lot of back and forth happening, which only contributes to the frustration that we're seeing. And three, there are troubleshooting suggestions being shared with the client here. Our support team is offering things like, hey, maybe clear your cookies and cache. And so those are suggestions and content that we can repurpose directly into our training. Ultimately, and maybe you could see where this is going, the client's frustration prompted our very own Luke to reach out and propose a quick phone call with the client. Remember, that was the positive response option. So Luke, what was the result there?
Yeah, it was an issue that was resolved in less than 5 minutes, de-escalated pretty much immediately. And we're able to turn that actually into a little bit of a feedback opportunity as well in terms of how we communicated. We just spoke to that data privacy project, and improving our cookie tools and some of the policies around that. We turned that into a little bit of a rapport building and opportunity for some feedback, and the client at the end of the day left happy. We just needed that second set of eyes and a little bit of a friendly voice on the other.
Yeah. So after all that back and forth, frustration, all caps typing, 5 minutes on the phone, pop that frustration bubble, solve the challenge, and turned into a learning moment. Luke reached out to the entire team and said, for cases similar to this, especially when someone's getting frustrated, I always recommend getting someone on the phone. On one hand, it makes information gathering a little bit easier, but it might help diffuse that frustration. So we took that insight and decided to create a playable training moment out of this. So how do we bring it to life? As I mentioned, we took inspiration from that real interaction to create an authentic simulated experience. Things like the lengthy thread that we noticed. You'll see in the example we shared earlier, there's reply. This is the result of a back and forth here, and we brought that into the inbox moment. We also included screenshot attachments that we borrowed directly from the real interaction, the cookie error that they were dealing with. We implemented that communication style, that all caps that we saw happen in real life. We brought it right into the tool and helped build some of that authenticity to the moment that we created. And finally, as I mentioned, some of the response options in that playable training came directly from some of the communication back and forth with the client. So you might say, okay, that's easy. You took an email thread in the real world about a cookie issue, and you created a simulated cookie issue thread. Let me take it one step further. With the same insights that I talked about from that original thread, we can change a few things in the content and execution here, and we can create a customer support training moment about something completely different. Let's say in this case, a delivery issue. So now Madeline's reaching out, reply, delivery issue. And the screenshot attachment here is a tracking screenshot. So same concepts that we took from that inspiration, and just with a tweaked context, you can build something completely different. In the body, Madeline's saying, I reached out to the shipping company directly, like your team told me to. I still do not have my order, that all caps communication style. And then some of those response options you can repurpose in this environment as well. So with a few different changes, we've been able to create a different but still relevant and authentic training. We tweaked some of the elements, and if the scoring needs adjustment as well, here's where you can add a completely different set of response options and adjust the scoring as well. So there's a quick example of how you can draw inspiration from real interactions that you have in your everyday workflow and create something impactful and beneficial in our training environment with inbox simulations. Luke, let's talk a little bit more about some additional sources of inspiration for authoring these inboxes.
Yeah, we're all some sort of storytellers here. I know there's a lot of designers from what I can see in the chat. So sometimes you just need to figure out what's the best avenue to bring that out. A great first step with an inbox simulation is considering the role that you're writing for. So this is going to be a big inspiration point. I almost like to frame this a little bit in the context of a job posting. So if someone's assuming a role, what are the key responsibilities of that role? Who are the stakeholders they're going to be interacting with? And then on top of it, what are the tools they might use to bring in some of those supplemental materials we were talking about before?
Yeah, speaking of those tools, I always like to think about information sources in my role. I get voicemails from clients. I may share a webinar link with a colleague or spreadsheet full of data. And I think about where I get my information from my colleagues and how I can represent those in simulated workflows in a training. That adds a ton of authenticity. We showed some attachments. There was a version we utilized that voicemail directly in the inbox, and it just adds a level of fidelity and realness that makes the training even more engaging.
Yeah, the voicemail was a great one. We're always trying to build little test cases with inboxes, and I can say Wyatt does an impeccable Chicago accent. I'd probably give it about an 8 out of 10 on a good day, depending on who you ask, but that's my my 2 cents, I guess.
You can have fun with it. I don't know if it's a great Chicago accent, but I did take on a character with a Chicago accent. That is true.
Like I said, we're all storytellers. Another place you can gain some inspiration would be pop culture. So maybe you're not wanting to pull your actual employees into this scenario, but you can look at movies, TV shows you might enjoy, and just think to yourself, how might a Michael Scott type out an email? Probably pretty casual language. Wouldn't want to get too inappropriate, but maybe he's going to send a few memes in an email thread.
Yeah, I've used Michael Scott as a reference before when authoring. And as Luke and I have been preparing for this, I've been thinking about this. And somebody that Luke and I both like is Gordon Ramsay. And I've been cracking myself up thinking how Gordon Ramsay might deal with a delivery issue like Madeline did. You'd have to bust out some of the special characters for that one. So as we move on from content inspiration, the next section is going to focus on how easy it is to take that content and design in our no-code platform. And to demonstrate some of the workflow and functionality of that platform, Luke and I are going to challenge ourselves to build an inbox in only 15 minutes live in front of you. Really excited to do it. A little nervous, if I'm being honest. But to begin that process, we want to ask you to help us decide what we're going to build. So in the chat, if you could decide what the role we're going to build out here, A for customer support role, B for sales, and C for leadership. Once you choose that, we'll also ask one more variable for you to help us design. But Matt, what are we seeing? What do they want us to build?
Yeah, well, so looking at the chat, I'm seeing an overwhelming response for C, leadership. I say we go with that.
Okay, we're going to build 15 minutes to build a leadership sim. Quite the challenge. Now, next question is, what do you want us to assess in our leadership sim? Do we want to assess problem solving, communication, or teamwork and collaboration? 1, 2, and 3 in the chat.
Let's see here. Taking a look, Wyatt. I think we're leaning a little bit towards 2, communication.
Okay, so we've got a leadership sim. Let me write this down. Leadership sim about communication, 15 minutes on the clock. Matt, you're going to time us, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Luke, are you ready to go? Should we share the platform, show them how to do this?
Yeah, here's kind of where the fun is going to begin. So let me grab control of the screen here and we will get going.
And I'll say as Luke pulls up his screen, we have some prepared content here, and we're going to fly through this. It may seem a little rapid because we only have 15 minutes. I encourage you to watch this back and check out some of our other materials for a breakdown of what and how to use the platform. So Luke, not seeing the screen yet, but I believe we're going to start by creating the project and adding a name to that.
Luke, go ahead and click the screen sharing button at the upper left corner of the screen sharing pod.
Okay, let me click that one more time.
There you go.
Thank you, Gary.
We got it.
You can see it now. Yep.
So here's the page I was talking about. We're going to create an inbox, and in this case, we're going to call it Leadership Team. And then the first step in creating the inbox is adding that skill, that communication skill that you all so graciously decided us we would use. So Luke, what are you doing here?
Yeah, so not only are we entering the skill, which again, a skill is going to be kind of our basis for measurement. So we're evaluating how effective someone is in the skill of communication. And we're just going to provide a brief description of that skill to our audience. So how we define communication at our company for this group of users. So in this case, you know, we grabbed an example from Google a little bit. We're handling a lot of our client-facing communication via email. We know this is an email interface. This is perfect for the day-to-day that we're trying to outline.
And I'll pause on the screen real quick, Luke, before we move on. That blue hyperlink, see examples. On this page, if you click that, you can download a Word doc full of examples of skills and descriptions that other authors have used that you can borrow directly on this page. But let's go ahead and start to build out the scenario. As I mentioned, this is an expedited process, so some of these fields we're not going to fill out in this case, but we will go with the role introduction. What role are we taking on, Luke?
Yeah, so in this case, we had the food delivery service as an example before. In this case, we're saying we're working at one of those food subscription services, and we're going to be acting as the chief people officer. So we talked about the leadership team playing a big role. We want to assume the role of someone who has interactions with a lot of different teams, a lot of different potential stakeholders. In this case, we report to the CEO of the company, but we deal with a lot of different people and a lot of different job functions.
Okay, so we're taking on the role of chief people officer at a food subscription service, one of those delivery services that brings a box of food for you, pre-prepared meals for you to cook up at home. Correct, Luke?
Exactly. And like Wyatt said, there's a lot of other world building you can do here, but with this 15 minutes that we're working with, we can only do so much.
Well, let's start to build out some characters. We're on the clock. So Luke, I think you're going to build out 3 characters here. The first being Caleb Bauer, and Caleb's title here is Senior Manager of Operations. The next character you're going to build is a designer, I believe, Dion Dawson.
Yeah, and the fun thing with these characters, Wyatt, is we have the sample characters documentation that we provide to our clients, and these are all taken directly from that. So we try to make it copy and paste as possible.
So 3 characters here: Senior Manager of Operations, Designer, and VP of Customer Support. That's who our Chief People Officer will be interacting with in our simulation here. Let's go ahead and start to build out the interactions and the emails in the inbox section. The first email is coming from Caleb, that Senior Manager of Operations. Subject line, did you see this? And Luke, go ahead and keep building as I read this out. Caleb says, I know that we regularly audit our outreach, but I was wondering if you had seen what the sales team has been saying about our packaging. Something about everything being 100% recyclable. You and I both know that's untrue. It might make the customer feel better, but it's totally unethical. I think I'm going to say something. So Caleb's reaching out with this issue about overhearing concern from how the sales team is communicating. What are our response options here, Luke?
Yeah, in this case, we're giving our users 3 different options. And this kind of illustrates the levels of correctness idea. The first option is going to be just sitting on that email until you have more information. For certain skills, this might be a more effective response, but since we are measuring communication, that's actually not particularly.
So no communication at all.
Not at all. So in this case, we can give negative or positive points. Since this is an ineffective response, we'll actually give this a negative point for our users. The second response here, we will communicate with Caleb saying we're going to look into this matter immediately. We're not defining what the actual resolution is going to be necessarily, but we're at least getting that outreach to him. That's better than nothing, I would say. So we might assign that 1 point. The best option, though, and again, this is my opinion, I think Wyatt might agree with me, but confirm with Caleb that the outreach is audited and a discussion will be held if necessary. So we're confirming we have a process in place to handle situations like this. We are getting that communication out to Caleb, kind of confirming that we're going to be looking into it, and then saying, if we need to talk about this, we will, and giving him that clarification.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the most effective option there. And Luke's demonstrating here how you add skills and assessment points to response options. Now, when the participant goes through this, based on what they choose, those points will be applied in the background and put into the reporting, obviously, that happens at the end of the simulation. One more thing I want to add on this email, Luke. I always love an opportunity to show the personality of the character you're interacting with. Let's have Caleb sign off in a specific way. We all work with colleagues who are rushed and urgent, act like everything needs to happen now. Let's make Caleb one of those and put a tagline here that says, let me know what you think ASAP. Awesome. That's a moment of adding authenticity of your coworker and who you're dealing with that I just love about inboxes. So let's move on to the next interaction, which is going to be an instant message. And this instant message is coming from Dion, our designer. Dion is reaching out and saying, I've been working on a flyer for an upcoming campaign. Want to make sure it works. Do you have a minute for some feedback? This is a great example of how you can build your interactions and fit the format that is most effective for that interaction. This feels like an instant message, a chat that I would send a colleague. Hey, I'm working on something. Do you have a second to check it out? And Luke is going to build out some responses here where you can reply, sure, Dion, I can check out the flyer you're working on, or I'm kind of busy right now, maybe later. Now, this is going to prompt a different interaction based on what you choose. So how do we set that up, Luke?
Yeah, so you'll see we have this add trigger button in the right-hand panel here. So we have sure selected, so we're committing to actually giving the feedback to Dion. So we're going to go ahead and trigger a new instant message. We're going to say this is coming from Dion again. And Dion's going to say, awesome, I'll send it over in a moment.
Great. So if the user chooses that first response, sure, that's how Dion's going to respond. If the user chooses kind of busy, Dion's also going to respond just a little bit differently and maybe with some slightly different timing.
Yeah, so we'll say, awesome, I'll send it over in a bit.
Yeah, take your time. I'll send it over in a bit. Now, either way, depending on what the user chooses, Dion's going to send them an email with this flyer concept. It's just going to add a illusion of choice here and a little bit of a different interaction. Once again, building authenticity and world building to this moment. So here's the email that's going to come from Dion where he passes the flyer that he was working on. and you still have it as Caleb at this moment. Let's make sure we have it coming from the right character. And Luke, we're going to add an attachment here, right?
Yeah, so we're pointing to an email attachment, which is something I know Wyatt and I do pretty much every day. So we're going to go ahead here with the Add Attachment button. We'll choose a file that we want to attach, and we have our little flyer concept ready here. We'll call it flyer. You have the option to upload images, documents, videos, whatever makes sense in the given situation. In this case, it is an image. It's a PDF technically, but we'll say it's an image. So we'll attach that.
Awesome.
It's going to be there for our users when they read this email.
Yeah, so this interaction lends itself to a little bit different of a response type, especially if we're measuring communication. Rather than a multiple choice, let's try an open response type here, Luke.
Yeah, so I think context is really important here. So we're asking for feedback. And regardless of what skill you're assessing, in this case, we're saying communication, we can look at this open text response, the user typing in their actual response to this email. We can see how constructive that feedback is. We can look at it from a professionalism standpoint. We can look at it from a grammatical standpoint. So there's a lot of different avenues you can use this, but in the case of feedback, open text responses make a ton of sense.
Yeah, excited to show you that. The clock is ticking in my head here, Luke. Let's hurry up and finish out this last email that we want to build. This one's coming from our final character, Camille Wells, VP of Customer Support. Camille is reaching out about the topic of team burnout. So Camille has seen some troubling indicators from the team, and she's worried it's going to lead to maybe turnover or other inopportune outcomes. And in this case, Camille is adding a link in the middle of the email there about an article she read on the topic of team burnout and asking you to respond. So Luke, how do we add that article to this email?
Again, it would be similar to like an Outlook or Gmail client as an example. So we just highlight the text here. And we have the option to add a link directly in. So I'll paste in my lovely Mayo Clinic article here. We know that's a credible source too within the context of an inbox. And we'll have that set to open in a new window because we don't necessarily want to take our users away from the inbox simulation. We'll have it open in a new tab and act again as a supplemental resource.
Yeah. So one other thing to add here, I don't want the user to be inundated right off the bat with all these examples. So why don't we add a delay to Camille's email here and make sure that it trickles in as we go through the experience.
Yeah, let's have it come in at about the 10-second mark. I think that's enough.
Wonderful. So we have some interesting interactions here. If we go up to the top right, let's preview the experience and check out what our end user would see with what we built here. So here's the preview experience. You got your message from Caleb. Oh,
yeah, I'm kind of overwhelmed by this Dion message coming in immediately. Why I think this presents an opportunity to adjust that.
Yeah, I didn't even get a chance to read what Caleb was saying before I got that IM. Let's edit that and make Dion come in a little bit later, maybe after Camille, maybe around the 15-second mark.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
that gives us some time to look at those other communications.
Great. So that preview experience allows you on the fly to make edits to your experience and evaluate what the changes look like for the user. So what do we have here, Luke?
Yeah, so we see our Caleb email here. We'll choose our response, which, I mean, we know the point total, so that's a pretty easy choice for us. So we'll respond to Caleb.
Like cheating on the test.
And we can always refer, if you wanted long email threads, we have our sent folder here that you can always go back and review those.
Let's click sure. I want to see the flyer that Dion is working on.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
So Dion has sent that over. Awesome.
Send it immediately, too.
Nice. So there's the attachment that we've created. And Luke, what do you think? What are you going to put in the open text response?
I'm going to say I'm not a designer, but I think this works, which in some cases can be an accurate response from someone like that.
Well, I am a designer. I don't think it works, Luke, but I'll let you have that. There's no logo. There's no call to action, but we'll get into that another time. Camille's email, you can see the article that we've embedded there. Awesome. There it is. Luke, anything to add to our experience here?
I mean, obviously, this is just a sampling of some of the kind of key features of the Inbox platform. We have a ton of supplemental materials. We can have conversations for days on end about this, but I think this was a pretty great example for the time allotted here. So
me too. Let's hit the stopwatch. Matt,
Yep.
How did we do? Did we get it in under 15 minutes?
Did fantastic, gentlemen. 11 minutes and 58 seconds with time to spare.
4 minutes to spare. We should probably just sit here in silence for 4 minutes then, Luke, right?
Yeah, just bask in it.
Thank you for participating in that. Was enjoying building that leadership and communication example there. I'm not seeing our presentation at this point, Gary. So as that gets pulled up, I want to reiterate, we know that was fast, and hopefully it gives you some of the lay of the land for how the authoring tool works and some of the capabilities that you can build into your versions. There are, I assure you, more appropriately paced materials in the help and support section of the tool. So we encourage you to check those out if you want to learn more. I do want to move on to our formal invitation for all of you, the audience, to start building. But Gary, are you there? Do we have our presentation ready? I think we've lost Gary here. I can maybe share my screen.
I'd say let's take that approach, Wyatt.
I don't think I have screen sharing capabilities at this point, folks. Luke, do you want to pull up the Micro Learning Challenge registration page and share that directly, and we can talk about the invite for the participants to build their own inbox moment.
And so you can do that, fellas, by sharing your screen. Luke, if you want to do that, I will re-upload your slides. Somehow they got turned off.
I guess the speed at which we were building.
No, but that's okay.
So this is the competition that we've been teasing that we're really excited to announce for all of our participants. Luke, kick us off.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll be sharing this information, of course, through the appropriate channels, and we teased this at the beginning of the presentation. But today, again, is the launch of our Micro Learning Challenge. So I'm sure that raises the question, what's in it for you outside of building an exciting, immersive inbox simulation? Well, there is the interesting wrinkle of there being a grand prize winner for this competition, and that grand prize winner is going to take home $500. I said we were excited in general about this, not just about the grand prize winner. So I'll also say, excited just by taking part in this. You'll see some of this on the page as well, but everyone, just for participating in meeting the criteria, everyone will be eligible for a $25 gift card, and then also free simulation licenses to test out your inbox with a live audience.
Yeah, I'll pick up from there, Luke. We're not asking participants to build a full-on 30-minute or an hour inbox training. We want to see who can bring an impactful training moment rooted in their experience to life in as little as 5 emails. So if you could scroll up, or actually that's a great place to look, Luke. The competition launches today. We're using this webinar as a springboard to launch the competition, which will run throughout April. Submissions are due by the end of the month, April 30th, and winners will be announced on May 15th. A little bit more clarity about what a valid submission will include. It will include at least 1 key character, at least 1 skill assessed, and a minimum of 5 emails. Those emails will include an intro where you tee up the key situation, or where you tee up the role and scenario that you want the participant to take on. There'll be a key situation email where you immerse the user in a moment, 2 unique outcomes based on their decision in the key situation. And then finally, we'll require you to end with a debrief email that provides feedback and explains the assessment approach. So all the details are available on this page. If you scroll back up to the top, Luke, there's a great video there that covers all the criteria and really all the information. Luke, what are we providing and launching this with?
Yeah, nobody's necessarily going to be starting from scratch with this. You'll see there's sample submissions on the page. And when you sign up, you're also going to be passed along a prompt-based template with the criteria that Wyatt was just speaking to, matches the exact criteria verbatim. And then we also have this sample submission here based around the cookie issue that we were just speaking to. So you could use one of those as a resource. You can use both of those as a resource. You could use none of them, but whatever gets those creative juices going, they're all available to you. Additionally, we're also going to be holding 2 open office hour sessions, which are on this page. So if you have any questions, you'll be able to meet with a member of our team, get responses in real time, and we'll communicate that through the appropriate channels, and again, on this page that we are looking at right now.
Yeah, we're really hoping that everyone participates. Really looking forward to see what you all build, and can't wait to check out the submissions. All right, wonderful. The slides are back here, so if you click directly on this slide, I believe you'll be taken to that microlearning registration page. I think the link is in the chat as well. That wraps up most of our presentation. Want to just quickly summarize what we've covered today. Luke, what did we go over?
Yeah, just to revisit that agenda, we had our little synopsis on what inbox simulations are. We saw a few practical use cases of them. We also learned how to grab some inspiration from kind of what the world is giving us. We successfully built an inbox simulation in under, I think we said 11 and change.
11 minutes, world record.
You know, that's a win for us, I think. And now everyone should be up to speed on our micro-learning challenge that launches today. Excited to see what people build.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the build your own custom inbox simulation option today. As Matt mentioned up top, there are other options for incorporating inbox simulations into your company, ready to use, custom by Capsum. To learn more about those, we encourage you to visit capsum.com, and you can schedule a demo with us, or cut out the middleman. And if you type inbox in the chat right now, we'll make sure to reach out to anyone who does that and start the conversation about inbox simulations with you. Once again, we hope you'll participate in our micro learning challenge. And thanks so much for joining us today. We'll wrap up and end with questions. Before we do that, I just want to pass a thank you on to Gary and Training Magazine for hosting us. It was really great to be with you, and excited to hear what kind of questions everyone has.
And thank you very much, fellas. I really appreciate this. And I think everybody should give you a great hand, all three of you, for pulling this off in a very tight, professional presentation. It was really a terrific webinar. And I don't say that to everybody. So, folks, you can put your comments in the chat. The other thing before we do Q&A is just over on the right-hand side, you'll see a question. I'm going to move this around for you so you see it right there. What did you learn today that you can apply in your work, or that you would like to apply in your work if you don't have a tool like Capsum available? What did you like to take away from today's session and be able to go back and use in your work? And so we can go ahead and take a few questions now. We've got a couple of minutes here, if there are any that weren't answered yet. And that's another compliment I have for our gentlemen today. Fabulous job of answering the questions in the chat as we went along.
Thank you. Any outstanding questions that we want to start with?
And while we're waiting for them to put those in, let me ask you gentlemen a question. What's the most common question that you get that maybe hasn't been asked yet today?
Luke or Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say that Matt might have a little more experience talking to clients, so I might tee him up for that one.
Well, I would say I could respond to that. I would say the potential. What can I do with this sort of platform? I would say that it's virtually endless. Every single day that we talk with individuals about this platform, we find a new, different way it could be used. As I mentioned earlier, it's like saying recruiting, for example. You know, we originally created this for identifying skill gaps, but since then, recruiting and hiring has been a main focus, certification, or even using it as an internal tool to evaluate your current L&D initiatives. The list continues to grow, and we're happy to be there as that does grow.
Yeah, something I hear regularly when we show this off is it only choose from the pre-selected responses. And as we demonstrated here, there are other response types, that open text response where the user can respond using their own language, as well as we have a multi-select option for those as well. So it's not just choose A, B, or C. There's a few response type options that are available.
And we just got a question from Lynn. She wants to know, after building the inbox simulation, how do you use it live in a class?
Yeah, it's we have a variety of options here. So if you were going to use it in an academic setting, we have a few different ways we can go about that. Once the content is created, it's pretty straightforward in terms of publishing your inbox simulation. And then we can have students register themselves in, participants register themselves in. A lot of the time we'll create accounts and just kind of send them over your way just to make things a little bit easier. On the academic side as well, we do have LMS integration, some single sign-on functionality there to make that a little bit smoother process.
So that's a great answer. You know, we something else has just come up. I've been wondering throughout. We have a sister publication, Sales and Marketing Management Magazine, and a whole community dedicated to sales and marketing management. Many of the people here in Training Mag Network belong to that. But Chris asks, how do you use this in sales training? In what kinds of scenarios? And I think, you know, it'd be a great idea to do a webinar for that group of people as well.
Yeah, and I will say for those who do create their Capsum Inbox authoring platform accounts, even if you don't take part in the competition, you're actually going to get that sample sales training version that we alluded to in the presentation. You'll actually have that as a sample so you can see some of those scenarios that we put together. And as Wyatt mentioned, that was those were scenarios sourced from our director of sales at Capsum. So we kind of leveraged him as a little bit of a subject matter expert.
Yeah, that content is yours to use, customize, build on top of, tailor to your organization. Matt, do you have any examples of how sales training has been implemented?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've seen it done in sort of a pre and post test fashion where it's done prior to, you know, as soon as an individual is being entered into an organization, and then at the end of an onboarding process to track that development. But it can also just be used as a part of performance reviews as well, done annually. That'd be probably the two most common that I've seen.
Yeah, it's as simple as, do we properly know how to use our sales tool? So like we have Salesforce as an example. Do people know how to use a tool like that? Do they understand the lead pipeline? There's a lot of things you can do with that.
Yeah.
And I put Tracy's question up. Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Not a problem, Gary. I can respond to this real quick. So can
Okay.
the simulation be pushed to individual email inboxes too? So this goes to a question earlier in the chat as well. Everything is done within the Capsum Inbox platform. However, you know, in terms of getting into the simulation, it's as simple as sending a unique hyperlink. That way individuals can register and immediately complete the simulation and then get provided with instantaneous feedback upon completion as well. And then alternatively, we can always bulk register individuals. If you have, say, 50 people you want to put through one of these, very easy for us to do, and we can take care of that for you. And then there was one other mention I did want to expand upon a bit in terms of LMS integration. Yes, indeed, we can do that. In fact, at this time, we've already expanded into many of the major LMS systems like Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard, Schoology, to name a few. But we're also working on SCORM integration. That way, if you have a particular system like, say, Workday, we can integrate with you very quickly there too. So.
Yeah, Matt, I want to piggyback on your first response there about how participants get access to the simulation. That was something that we spent a lot of time talking about as one of the key benefits in our initial webinar about finding and fixing skill gaps. One of the major benefits of Inbox is that it's available as remote digital training in an online environment. So access to this simulation and these training moments is really available for anybody in any unique work environment.
And it looks like we might have run out of questions, and you fellas have done such a wonderful job of answering them. I'm not surprised, but I'm looking forward to getting more involved with Inbox simulations, and I hope many of our members are too. I've gotten a lot of great comments on the back channel as well. Do we have a contact slide that we can put up where they can contact you after today's webinar?
Yeah, I would encourage, if you're interested in contacting us, to schedule a demo on capsum.com, or as we mentioned, if you type Inbox in the chat, we will reach out to you and start that conversation.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for just a terrific webinar. It's been great. Look forward to having you back and learning more about how we might apply this. And maybe you can show us some examples of the winners of the competition. Do you think that would happen?
Certainly. Excited to see what you build, Gary.
Great. Fantastic. There we go. I'll probably build nothing and just build more webinars. Anyway, great. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. We hope you enjoyed it. And again, the recording is available by going to trainingmagnetwork.com/recordings. You are welcome to share this recording with anyone you know on your team or outside of that, because as you know, all they have to do is just register in Training Mag Network and they'll have access to all the recordings, including this one. So please do that. Fellas, thanks very much. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much, Gary. Take it easy, everyone.
Take care. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.